Hi everybody, it's Becky Singleton and this is Happy, Healthy, and Fit. We're going to talk a little bit today about childhood and growing up and how your raise can affect you. So why don't you join me here today, here on Happy, Healthy, and Fit.
Can you show me the way? Can you show me the way? Can you show me, baby, can you show me the way? Can you show me the way? Can you show me the way? Can you show me, baby, can you show me the way?
Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. We're going to talk today about childhood and growing up. And first, I'd like to ask you if you could please subscribe, like, and share. That always helps the channel and it helps any YouTuber you watch. So thank you. So I wanted to talk a little bit about childhood and growing up and how you become the person that you become. I'm a different kind of parent. I have two totally generational children. And what I mean by that, I had a child that's much older than my youngest one. And so things have changed a lot, but I haven't changed. And the way I grew up affects how my children are and how they're growing up. And so you might want to call me an old school parent because I still have the mindset of my generation and how I grew up and how I instill that in my children. And also trying to adapt to how children are today. One of the things I'm noticing about young people and young children, they're having a hard time with problem solving, thinking through problems, because we don't give them the chance to resolve situations on their own. And so one of the things I do, especially with my younger daughter, not so much with my adult daughter because she's grown up, but my younger daughter, I always walk through solutions. What would that look like if you did this? What would it look like if you did that? What do you think would happen? You know, and your behavior and your choices make up what could happen. So I'm bringing this up because my sister and I were talking recently about how we grew up. And as wonderful and lovely as our parents were, my mom was a single mom. My parents were divorced when I was about 7 years old. My dad was in our life, but he didn't live with us. So he didn't see the day-to-day, but he was really instrumental on why I'm so physically fit, very talented in terms of sports that I played, and very thoughtful about my own body because I know exercise plays such a huge role, and then became someone who taught people how to take care of themselves. So I owe all of that to my dad because he installed in us the importance of movement and how it made your mind strong and how you can overcome challenges because of sports, because of exercise. He would make us run around this park that was across the street from our house when we lived in Boston. And we would run and run and run. And you may have heard me tell this story before. But the reason I'm telling it again is because he would run and we would be tired. And because he would say, you only have 2 more laps. So we'd run, you know, and the 2 laps would go. He goes, no, 2 more. And we would look at him, but he was such a big guy. We never said, no, we're not doing it anymore. We just kept running. We kept running. And we ran literally until we passed out, which was much more than just 2 laps. And what he was trying to share with my sister and I, or any of our cousins that were with us, was that you can push yourself beyond what you mentally think you can do. So if you think you can only do 2 laps, well, that's all you're going to do. But he showed us that we could go so much further and not limit ourselves. And that lesson still holds true with me today. I push myself beyond any limit. I don't see roadblocks. I don't see challenges as challenges. I'm like, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, that's no big deal. Oh, I can overcome that. I don't fuss about anything because I know I can do it. I've always been like that. My sister has also always been like that. We grew up together, so I'm not surprised. But we also talked about what I call the dark side of growing up. And because we lived most of our time with my mom, she was, I said, a single mom. She worked a couple jobs. My mother was a scientist and a big corporation, but she also always felt the need to work 2 jobs. And that's maybe why both my sister and I are hustlers too, because I always worked 2 jobs forever. Even when I was in corporate America and didn't have to, I always had my fitness life, teaching and doing things around the country for people like the NFL or Reebok or on tour, and I worked a full-time life. So it wasn't odd to me to work 2 jobs. I thought that was normal. I always hustled. I always made sure I had eggs in many baskets. That's just how I think. How do you think? Do you think that you need to just do 1 job? Is working for corporate America your only alternative? I don't believe it is. I think there's an entrepreneur in all of us. All of us deserve to have our own way and our own say on how we are going to live and make money. So I want you to truly think about, do you have an entrepreneur inside of you that you want to step out there in the world and create something new and do something that can change the world? I think that way every day. But going back to the dark side of growing up, that to me wasn't a negative, but my mother didn't know how to take care of children. And what I mean by that, she was a professional woman. She wasn't a June Cleaver. And if anybody knows that Leave It to Beaver series, you know who June Cleaver is. She was the perfect housewife, right? She was the perfect mom. But my mom wasn't that style of parent. She was really into her career. And so that meant that food wasn't on the table at 5. Did you take a shower? Wasn't asked. Did you brush your teeth? Wasn't asked. Things that were happening in my house were normal to us, but they weren't really good normals. Do you understand what I'm saying? Basically, I learned through benign neglect. And what I've learned through that, she could only do what she knew. And my mother grew up kind of like a little bit of a princess. My mother was raised by her grandparents, and they doted over my mother. My mother could never do anything wrong. She could do anything she wanted. She could have anything she wanted. She never had to learn how to cook. She never had to learn how to clean the house. She never had to do those things. So guess what? When she became a mother and she had a household, she didn't know how to do any of those things. But my sister and I suffered because of that. We've talked about this as a family, and we do not hold my mother accountable for what she did the best she could do with what she had. But what I realized for myself is that having a beautiful, well-kept home, having food on the table at 5, having my family have a really good experience was super important to me. That was like my number one thing. I wanted to be the best mom, the best wife. I wanted to be able to do it all, work and make everything happen. And I can do all that. My success was in that piece of it. It wasn't so much in the relationship piece of that. And so we can talk about that at another time. But I want to share about this whole feeling the need to be a great mom and a great experience for my own children and family and where they lived. I used to be embarrassed. I didn't want my friends to come over to my house when I was growing up, and I hated that feeling. I had a friend who had that kind of household. Her mom was a stay-at-home mom. The dad worked, and so I went to school with her sister, but I was friends with her. My friend I'm talking about is a couple years older than me. And so I loved going to their house. I loved eating over, and they often took me on vacations with them so I could see what was happening. I could see the importance on the vegetables and the protein and things on the plate. I mean, the mother specifically fed her children very healthy meals, certain times of the day. Their bedrooms were perfect with the perfect bedspreads. They had a playroom with games and doll houses. I mean, it was like my dream thing to do. I loved going over there. And funny, she would often say, the mother whose name was Mary would say, "Oh, no leftovers tonight. Becky's eating over." And she would always praise that I would clean my plate. Look at how she eats, gang. See, you should follow her. And it was just because food may not have been on the table at 5 o'clock for me. And because I was physically fit and active, I needed to eat. But my mother wasn't in tune with that. And so there are things that I suffered and had to get through, especially around eating, not to balance that out as I grew up. And my refrigerator is always packed with food, and my pantry is always packed with food. And I even have a second refrigerator and a second freezer. And I know that has to do with the way I grew up, because there were times when we didn't have food, and there were times when we didn't have oil in our tanks. In Boston, it gets cold, and a lot of these houses are heated with oil, and the oil tank man comes and fills your tank. But if we didn't have oil in the tank, there's no heat. So there are things that I'm so specific about today, about my own family and how I raised them, that I purposely make sure that I will do whatever it takes. I talked about that last week, and that's where it comes from. There's a book that I read recently. It's called Can't Hurt Me. It's by David Goggins, and he grew up in a very abusive, neglectful, was a prejudice in his life. He became a Navy SEAL. He overcame mentally all the challenges, the things that would have shown up as you're never going to make it kind of things. He became a superstar. He was an outstanding Navy SEAL. If you ever hear him talk, he's never going to be defeated. And his father was vastly the most abusive guy through his book that I could see. And I have to tell you that when children aren't cared for properly, they either rise to the occasion, like my sister and I, and like David Goggins, or they go the other way. They get hooked up on drugs and alcohol because they're trying to cope with the pain and things that happen to them. And so, you have two roads to take. And as you're growing up, the good thing is to have at least one parent, he had his mom, that helped him see the light and helped him guide him. And I know there's a lot of parents out there that if one of the parents is not doing their job, the other parent is doing the job times 10. You know what I'm saying? So good for you, for those parents that are getting out there and really supporting their children in whatever they need. Life isn't perfect. The road that we go down is our own personal journey. But as long as they get support, that's awesome. My person was my friend's mother, Mary. She showed me, I actually wrote her when I was about 30 years old, what she meant to me. I wrote her and told her, I'm the kind of mother today because of her. And I appreciated that, because I didn't get to see that, though I wanted that. And I'm sorry if I'm tearing up. She touches me in such a way, because you never know who's going to touch you. You never know who's going to show you a path. I've had many people in my life who've shown me the light and ways I can go. But I always, till this day, appreciate Mary, because Mary was that one woman who showed me how to be a really good mom and how to manage money and go on vacations and give your kids all the things that you want to and support them. And my friend's sister, who was in the same class I was in, she was valedictorian. They're both very smart girls. I think my friend graduated 4th in the class. These were people who were very smart, but the mom was in tune with what they needed. She always made sure, like, I would go over there to do homework just to sit with them. Maybe I could absorb some of that smartness. I'm just saying, whoever you're hanging around with, whatever you're doing is going to reflect on who you are today. So if you're a parent struggling on giving your children what they need, seek out help. If there's a family that you know could support you guys and what you need to do, reach out to them. I'm always trying to make sure that, what I can do best is, something I can do for others. I will do that. Reach out to people that may be able to support you. Mary didn't know until I wrote her that letter years and years later how much she meant to me and what I learned. And when I had my very first baby, she came to my house and she taught me how to nurse my baby, and she made me several meals and allowed me just to be with my baby. And my mother wasn't capable of doing that. I maybe saw her a few days later. She wanted to take a couple of pictures of my baby to take and show her friends at work, but she wasn't that nurturing type. Mary was, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that Mary was there for me. I didn't even know that that's what people did. And when my sister had her baby, I did that for her. And I took really good care of my sister so she could be with her baby, and cooked for her family and stayed a week or so to make sure she was okay when she had her baby, because I saw it, because that's what Mary did for me. So you never know how people touch you. You never know what people have inside of them. I know that that is my destiny, to be a great mom and a great wife. And though I didn't accomplish it in the way that I wanted to, at least at this point, I know that I gave it my all, and I know I'm doing my best as a mom and trying to be that great mom to my children. Family always teases me and tells me that I'm Martha Stewart's illegitimate daughter, Martha Stewart. So it's because there's not much that I can't do. I can cook, I can fix things, I can make things happen out of nothing. I mean, you'd be surprised. And all of that I learned on my own. I had to learn how to problem solve. I had to learn how to make things work. Really, at a very young age, I was cooking at 6, 7 years old because I needed to eat. I learned by watching. I can pretty much pick up any skill just by watching someone for a few minutes, and then that's it. I just take off with it. It's because of the way I grew up. So, think about things that you do, that you may be helping someone be a better person, or you may be able to help them get to where they want to go. And I just wanted to share that story. It really came heavy on me today. So thanks for joining the channel. Thanks for being here. I really, really appreciate you. And remember, I'm Becky Singleton, and I'm just like you.
Baby, can you show me the way?